What's up, everybody? Welcome into MetLife Stadium, where the Buffalo Bills just improved to 4-2 on the season. They get a 23-20 win, albeit a little bit ugly in nature. 22 penalties accepted in this game, courtesy of our fearless leader, Nate Mink, who was watching things back in Syracuse. The most by any two teams in a game this season. Ryan, at times it was ugly. We were just talking about it before we started the show. Hard to watch at times. I think I saw a couple tweets where people were like, I'm turning this game off. Bills fans who were just like, I can't take any more of it. It was an ugly game. It almost felt super forced. I thought that there were some penalties in this game. I thought there were some good calls in this game. But, man, the majority of them were pretty bad. And when you have Aaron Rodgers coming out after the game saying, even the pass or the call on AJ Epinesa where it was called unnecessary roughness, even thought that was a little bit soft. So, it was just not a great game of football across the board.
Oh, terrible to watch, and the officiating taking center stage, kind of breaking up the flow of the game with all the penalties that they called. Obviously, multiple penalties that were offsetting, some that were declined. It really made for a tough night watching this game. And what's funny is early on, they missed two crucial calls, a holding on Greg Rousseau and a legal O-lineman downfield. So you thought, maybe they're going to let these guys play a little bit. And lo and behold, that was not the case at all. So, good for Aaron Rodgers coming out, saying they thought a lot of the penalties were ridiculous, especially the one with AJ Epinesa, which clearly was trying to strip Rodgers of the ball, a costly penalty on Spencer Brown that negated a pass interference. And, the list goes on and on. The officiating was poor tonight, but this game was also poor on both sides in terms of, a lot of the play, special teams with the kicking game, obviously, and the list goes on and on.
We're going to get into some of these defensive performances because for a while there, we got to get into the blunder also at the end of the first half. We'll talk a lot about that. But for a while there, it felt like the Bills were just letting the Jets hang in this game. And it felt like as the game was progressing, it didn't feel like this was a Jets team that had enough to compete, right? But it just, all these little things were keeping the Jets in the game, whether it was the missed Bass field goal, the Hail Mary at the end of the half, like just a lot of just not great play for the Buffalo Bills. And we're going to get into all of that. We're going to talk about this defense at the top. But before we do, we're brought to you by Topps Friendly Markets, as always. Right now, if you want to get game day ready, you get over to the Topps Red Zone. Score big savings, winning recipes, and everything you need for the ultimate game day experience. Head to the Topps Red Zone in-store for all your game day essentials and more. Ryan, some big news this week on the Wingnuts front also, before we get to this defensive performance. 1402 Millersport Highway this Saturday, 6 p.m. It is going to be Shout Live ahead of the Tennessee Titans game at home against the Bills. So if you're in town, if you're located in Buffalo, come out and join us for the live show this Saturday. But also, we're going to have a very new location of Wingnuts coming up here in the next couple of months. We're super excited about it.
Yeah, super pumped. Just announced today, opening another location at the Buffalo Airport Hotel. Correct me if I'm wrong. Used to be the 365 Sports Bar and Grill. Looking forward to when we have our first live show there, whenever that may be. But always excited for our friends over at Wingnuts, seeing their expansion as they continue to grow.
Indeed. We cannot wait for this Saturday. Make sure you come out. All right, let's get to the defense here. Let's start with the Hail Mary at the end of this, at the end of the half, because I was kind of watching it in absolute disbelief. I thought that I think I had actually ran out for a quick bathroom break right before that drive started, thinking like, all right, we'll get through a couple plays here. Maybe they'll get a field goal, but we'll see what happens. You get down to 8 seconds, and it's 1st and 10 from your own 48 for the Jets. And I got to be honest with you, I was kind of baffled at Sean McDermott's response in the press conference just now. They checked to the Hail Mary defense after the play. They thought from the 48-yard line they were going to try to get 8 seconds. I get it. There's enough time there, so I get it to a degree. They thought they were going to get a sideline play, get it into field goal range for Greg Zuerlein, who has not been great this season. It was not great in this game once again. And again, like the number one priority in that spot against Aaron Rodgers of all quarterbacks is not to allow the touchdown pass on the Hail Mary play. What ends up happening? He throws it deep down the field. Taron Johnson's a little bit out of position. It looks like he tried to like box out the receiver. Then you have two safeties in DeMar Hamlin and Taylor Rapp who look completely out of place on the play. They couldn't get in to try to make a play and knock the ball out. And there it is. Now it's a 3-point game going into halftime. Completely changes the dynamic of the game when the Bills probably could have gone in there at least up 7 if they're able to get a field goal. But now it's a 3-point game.
Yeah, just baffling by the Bills. The timeout that he called as well, that Sean McDermott called, nothing good seems to happen with these defensive timeouts and these crucial moments. Aaron Rodgers kind of said it best post game. He said, they asked about the Hail Mary. He goes, yeah, the Bills only sent 2 guys, so I had all day to make the throw. I don't understand the rationale. And yes, at the end of the day, the Bills had 6 guys in the end zone to try to knock that pass down. But you are rushing 2 guys and you're dropping Greg Rousseau and 2 others back about 20 yards downfield. Again, you're worried about the sidelines throw, whatever. Let them attempt the sideline throw. Let them attempt the long field goal. We saw tonight how bad the winds were, how many kicks were missed, extra points getting tipped because I think Tyler Bass was trying to kick it low to get it through because of the wind. It was a tough night to kick, and instead, by rushing 2, you give Rodgers all day to throw. You need to send 4 guys. You keep your front 4 in there. Get after Rodgers. Get him off his spot. The fact that he said, I had all day to make that throw, it gave them a shot. And I know the likelihood, the probability of completing those is never high, but the Bills have a knack for letting them up first and foremost. And Rodgers is the most successful quarterback in league history in terms of making those plays. So dumb decision by McDermott in terms of how he played it. The personnel personally has to be better, though. It took all momentum away from Buffalo because, like you said, they could have been up 20-10 at halftime, 20-13, get the ball back. They drove the first drive to open up the quarter in the third, obviously missed a 47-yard field goal, but the game could have been a lot different had they played that the right way.
That was a blunder in the game, and obviously it doesn't come down to that for the Bills. But I also want to transition to what I thought was a tale of 2 halves. I mean, for the safety specifically. So I tweeted sometime in the first half when Aaron Rodgers was just kind of able to sit back there. It didn't seem like the Bills were getting any kind of consistent pressure on him throughout the game. And I said, it looks like the Bills not only are going to have to trade for a wide receiver, but throw an edge rusher on the pile as well, or a pass rusher, whether it be an interior player. I know Ed Oliver's out. I know Von Miller's out. But to sustain pass rush at times, it didn't feel like the Bills were able to generate enough. And then lo and behold, we get into the second half, and AJ Epinesa, I guess, makes me eat my words a little bit because he has a huge moment in the game. But I guess that would be my biggest criticism of AJ Epinesa, even in a game like this. We've seen this movie before with him, right? Where he does show up sometimes in big moments. They need a little bit more consistency at different times. This isn't a good Jets team, Ryan. Like from top to bottom, up and down. You don't make a quarterback or a head coach change after 5 games unless there's major problems. And I think we saw that in this game today. Could they get better? Sure. Could they get Hassan Reddick into the mix and maybe that improves some things? And, maybe they'll be able to shore some things up against the run and the offense, protects Aaron Rodgers. Of course, we live in a world where you can make adjustments, where you can make fixes. But I felt like the safeties specifically in the second half, they were getting a lot of heat early because I brought up that tweet because people were like, edge rusher, pass rusher, wide receiver. What about the safeties? We need some new safeties. And now after this game, Ryan, I think people are talking about Taylor Rapp in a completely different light. He's been absolutely given his flowers nationally. I mean, on national television here today. If not for Taylor Rapp in this game today, they don't win it. Straight up. I mean, he makes that play in the end zone to rip the ball out from Garrett Wilson. He makes the play on the pass breakup. He stops the Breece Hall touchdown run, the would-be touchdown run at the 3-yard line. This was a game for Taylor Rapp. Spectacular, I think is the word I want to use to describe it.
Yeah, Taylor Rapp played out of his mind tonight, made huge plays. And, in my encouraged word, I listed just the 2 pass breakups, but that stop on Breece Hall, where like Hall was going to run in for a touchdown, ended up being huge because they force a field goal attempt. It's missed. It was a game-changing tackle in this matchup where the Bills easily could have lost, and like you said, probably would have lost in that scenario. The breakup of the touchdown, picture perfect in terms of the form, lowering the shoulder, getting it right in on Garrett Wilson, breaking the ball away from him. You couldn't ask for a cleaner or better timed hit in that area. And then when Rodgers, was going downfield with that ball, that looked like it was going to be completed. It felt like it was like right at the line of scrimmage, so either would have been a first down or a third and short in that scenario. But again, he comes in, he makes a perfectly timed break on that ball. 3 huge plays for the safety who, in the offseason, the Bills made it a priority to bring him back. They saw enough growth in him in year 1 in Buffalo to say, this guy can kind of hold down the fort at one safety spot for us. And he proved that tonight by, I don't want to say single-handedly, but playing a huge, huge role in why this team won the game 23-20.
If you're watching tonight on YouTube, late on the East Coast, almost 1 a.m, thank you so much. Hit that like button, subscribe to the channel as well. If you're just getting in here and you're setting up plans for the week, I mentioned it at the top, but we're going to be at Wingnuts, 1402 Millersport Highway this Saturday night for our preview show, Bills versus Titans. So make sure that you get out to Wingnuts for that show. Next up, Ryan, let's go to the offense for a minute, because there was a breakout performance tonight. James Cook, late in the week, the Bills get the news that he will not be able to go late in the process, like right up to the end here.
Right.
He's not able to play. It was kind of a strange week for Cook, because Adam Schefter put out a tweet from his representatives. He heard word that Cook was planning to play. They obviously took it all the way up until elevations were due, I think, sometime around 6:45. The Bills put it out a little bit before that Frank Gore Jr. was going to get the elevation. They hand things over to Ray Davis in a big way, and in kind of a funny way, because Ty Johnson got the start. He goes for 12 yards on his first carry. 2 plays later, they put Ray Davis in, and he literally carries the Bills down the field 50 yards, almost 50 yards on his first drive. Josh Allen, punches it in for the touchdown at the end of the drive. But it was really a tremendous performance, over 150 all-purpose yards for Ray Davis. And, this is the kind of performance that you were hoping to see from him as a rookie, big time.
Yeah, you're starting to see a lot of rookie backs shine a little bit in this league. This past weekend included in some areas where rookies got their first opportunities and played in a big-time way. So lo and behold, James Cook tells him he just doesn't think he can help them tonight, which is commendable, because he could have gotten in there and not been a factor, and who knows how that would have played out. So they do turn to Ray Davis early, despite Ty Johnson running the ball well, and he was just so physical that it felt like as the game went on, Matt, the Jets just didn't want to tackle this guy. He was a load to bring down. They knew every tackle was going to be a punishing attempt. He was going to lower his shoulder. He was going to keep his feet moving forward. You mentioned it. He had 100 all-purpose yards at the 2-minute warning in the first half between the great reception he made, although he also admitted he mistimed his jump on that terribly. He still found a way to come up with it. By the end of that game, you knew that the Bills were going to be able to possibly, ice the game between Ray Davis and Josh Allen, and sure enough, that's exactly what happened. Now, if you're the Bills, you're feeling really good about all 3 of your backs. You know what James Cook did last year, where he finished in all-purpose yards among all NFL players. You saw Ray Davis and what he looks like when given extended opportunities, because it had been hit and miss over the last few weeks. He was greatly outsnapped last week as that running back number 2 by Johnson. The way he played tonight, it's going to be hard to keep him off the field. He's going to probably be that handcuff for Cook, and deservedly so.
And I don't have a huge problem with it, because I think you want to try to keep James Cook as healthy as possible, and maybe even get creative with the way that you want to use him. I thought, we spent a lot of time this week talking about 12 personnel, right? It felt like they probably did play 12 a little bit more. Honestly, on the Mac Jones touchdown, they were in 2 tight ends, 3 wide receivers. Or on the, who did I say? Mac Jones?
Jones, yeah.
Sorry, Slayer.
Love you some Mac Jones.
I do love me some Mac Jones. I mean, he's the swagger of the guy that's going to probably take over for Trevor Lawrence after he forces his way out of Jacksonville because that team is such a tire fire. Did you see that video that was going around, side note, of the 4 dropped passes, touchdowns
4 dropped
in that
touchdowns.
game? And apparently 2 or 3 of them were on the same drive. So it's not like they had 28 points that weren't, but still just like, it's kind of unbelievable the shambles of which the Jacksonville Jaguars are in right now.
Yeah, they were awful in this game in terms of this past week in terms of how they performed. And that's the biggest disappointment in the NFL right now in terms of expectations from 1 year ago. But going to Buffalo's Mac Hollins in that touchdown, ran the route well there, going against a backup safety at that point in time. Got enough separation for Allen to kind of throw it over a defender and get it right to him. You know, for as good as that was, I will criticize his other opportunity to get a touchdown. He kind of just they pointed out on TV the way he ran his route. He could have really broke out a little bit more and created more of separation or a window for Allen. He kind of went diagonal instead. Made it a very tough throw for Allen. So overall, you can't be too upset with Hollins making scoring a touchdown, but they need a little bit more out of him until Khalil Shakir is back to 100%. Clearly gutted this game out. Was not near 100%. Was only, early in that game or in the first half, I think he was on the field for only about 3 snaps. They used him when they needed him, and he seems okay after the game, which is a great sign. But clearly they're still playing at well less than 100% right now, that wide receiver room.
Yeah, and he comes in and makes a huge play on a 3rd down. I mean, those are the kind of plays, I think I tweeted it, like you need him on the field for those plays.
Right.
Because if he's not there, it changes the dynamic of what teams have to defend. And he's so sneaky with it. The way that he can kind of get across the field sideline to sideline, he's super important. I still think the Bills should really seriously consider adding another piece. The 100%. Run game is such a strength of this team, and we now have to really talk about the season that Josh Allen is having. The Bills sitting here at 4-2. He finishes with 3 touchdowns in this game, 127.9 passer rating, 19 of 25 for 215 yards passing, 18 yards on the ground. I mean, this is the epitome of the kind of game that you want to see Allen play against this Jets defense, not putting the ball in jeopardy. I don't know how many, if any, of those incompletions were turnover-worthy plays. I mean, if one of them was one, it's not really standing out to me. There might have been actually one, like a Tony Chuck Clark or Tony Adams. One of them might have had a play on a ball. But again, it's like one play. I mean, Josh Allen he played the perfect game for what you wanted him to be in this game, and he had the complementary run game to go with it. I still think they have to work out some issues with the usage. I think a big piece of that would be getting another weapon that you can kind of trust and peel back the reliability on Mac Hollins in this offense. He has the nice touchdown. It's great. And he's not a huge part of things tonight. He only finishes the game with, where did I have it? Two targets, 1 catch for 8 yards, and it was the touchdown. It was a really nice play. But I don't know. I think you want less from Hollins. I know he's a great blocker, but I think you want to go out and add somebody that puts a little bit more stress on the defense on the boundary.
Now, and he definitely had 1 pass interference call. I know that there was one with Spencer Brown that negated it. I can't remember if he also drew another penalty in that game, which gave the Bills some yards.
Yeah, so that one on the Spencer Brown one, that was suspect.
That was
many suspect.
That was just a pancake block. That was awful. But
the Mac Hollins DPI, that wasn't pass interference. They barely bumped into each other.
Yeah, I need to rewatch that. In live, it did look like he got collided into before the ball could get there. I'll have to rewatch that. But the Spencer Brown call was bad in its own area. I know Dalton Kincaid drew a flag on a penalty where it was pretty much a free play for the Bills defense. So even if they didn't finish with great stat lines, some of these guys did step up in that area and draw some flags against this Jets secondary, which obviously helped in terms of moving the ball up and down the field in this 3-point win. So the wide receiver room, though, there's still much to be desired. They actually saw Curtis Samuel run some routes downfield, make a play. I see a lot of criticism in the chat about Samuel. But this was one of his better games with 3 catches for 44 yards on 4 targets. I thought Allen was off the mark on that pass in the end zone. He was open enough where that could have been a touchdown for him. I didn't think he was bad. He just hasn't been a difference maker like I think the Bills probably thought he could be. So I'm right there with you. This is still a win. They're 4-2. But if Brandon Beane watches this game, he still has to sit there and say, there's not enough talent in this wide receiver room. I need to go out and get someone. And Devontae Adams doesn't seem realistic with the Raiders. Continue to say they don't want to eat any of the cap. Maybe something changes there, but there still seems to be plenty of teams in on him. Amari Cooper makes the most sense based on his salary. The Browns season essentially being over. You could go to Carolina, look at a Deontay Johnson, see if they'd eat some of that contract. There's guys to be had, and I'm hoping that Brandon Beane is making those calls every day to see if teams are willing to move on right now, as some of these teams need to start looking ahead to next season and adding draft capital, as you can already almost kind of throw in the towel this year.
The Bills put out a pretty good tweet. You got to respect the game when they put out a box score of or screen grab of the final score, the Yankees winning, the Mets winning, and then the Bills winning. And he said, all the teams from New York won tonight. That's good. That's
that is good.
It's been played out, but it's good.
Yep.
All right. Let's get to, go ahead.
No, absolutely. I like the one too with the Subway with the score and the rat and heading back to New York with the win. They had some good ones waiting tonight. So good kudos to the social media team.
Garrett Wilson, man, had himself a nice game. 8 catches, 107. Lazard. I mean, I've been kind of dumping on Lazard a little bit at times, but he's having himself a nice, like, under the radar season.
Yeah.
You know, Breece Hall got it going today. I mean, listen, a win's a win is a win, right? In the NFL, it just felt like this was a game against a Jets team right now that's in major transition. They didn't seem like they had a lot of answers on the defensive side of the ball, and the Bills just kind of gave them opportunity after opportunity with whether it was mistakes, you know, blunders, like all these different things that we've kind of talked about over the course of the game. And I thought one of the biggest, I don't know what I want to actually call it. Whatever's going on with Dion Dawkins and the Jets, I think the Bills have to get that in check, because it's bordering on just too much at this point. Because listen, I get the two sides don't like each other. Dawkins isn't shying away from it. To be honest with you, there's a level of respect that I have for it, that he's saying this with his chest and he's leaning into it and he's playing the game with kind of like the bullseye on his chest. I get all that. Like, I respect it. But it turns into kind of a sideshow when every single play there's barking back and forth. And I actually wonder how much Sean McDermott even knows about the off the field stuff, like the podcast. Like, he's so dialing into everything. Right. I don't know if he even really realizes that this potentially was such a distraction. You know, that Dawkins situation at the end of the third quarter, the lights go out in the stadium and all of a sudden there's a skirmish and we're all trying to get our binoculars to try to figure out what's going on. Dawkins said that apparently one of the water folks that brings out one of the attendants that brings out the water to the Jets players seemed like he was kind of like shoving it in Dawkins' face. So he took it away and like threw it away, and that got Jets players upset. So they started kind of like chirping back and forth. And I don't know, like it feels like too much. I don't know.
No, I'm torn on it. I mean, I respect the hatred. He went in there, they won the game. Performance-wise, he blocked well. Boneheaded penalty to enter the fourth quarter with. Could have gone with both ways with the way that Quentin Williams was trying to get after him after the fact. But, you know, we didn't see in that video him grabbing the water bottle, throwing it. I guess that's what made it an easy call against Dawkins. You know, for some players, it's the motivation that they need. It gets them fired up. Think about Josh Allen against the Dolphins early on. With Christian Wilkins and how much he seems to despise. I know he never said that. He said he respected him, great player. But he got fired up for those games against Wilkins and the waving of the goodbye and all that. So I get it. I get the rivalries. I'd love to know, you know, I read the comments with the Vlad TV video in the off season, but like, he's a Temple guy. Maybe he thought he was going to get drafted there. Like, there's so much to the hatred, and it's so over the top, to your point, where he does need to reel it in a little bit, because that effectively killed that drive. The Bills were facing a 3rd and long entering the fourth quarter, but that made it 3rd and impossible. 25, or maybe there was half the distance to the goal at that point, and still 3rd and long. It killed any shot of the Bills, opening that quarter with a scoring drive when they really needed it. So I agree. Sean McDermott says he has to address it. Maybe Dion Dawkins needs to save those comments for every offseason, and when you get to the game, you just play the game.
Thank you so much for hanging out with us late here on a Tuesday morning, I should say early on a Tuesday morning, inside MetLife Stadium. I'm Matt Parrino. He's Ryan Talbot back in Western New York, and we have a big show coming up this weekend, Saturday, 6 p.m., Wingnuts, 1402 Millersport Highway. And while you're waiting, if you want all the extra analysis from Ryan and Matt, sign up to become a Shout Buffalo Bills insider. You can do that by texting 716-528-6727. Go to joinsubtext.com/shoutbuffalobills. If you do that, you get a 2-week free trial. It's $3.99 a month after that. And the Shout text line is brought to you by Carrie C. Beyer, attorney with the law offices of Francis M. Litro, located at 237 Main Street in Buffalo, New York. If you or someone you know is seriously injured, give them a call, 716-852-1234, or check out litrolaw.com. It's 2 weeks in a row, Ryan. I think the Bills should have won in Houston, right? Like, I mean, they were given every chance to win in Houston. Can you imagine the different conversation we've been having right now if the Bills are sitting here at 5-1? But the two common denominators of the Bills having a chance to win last week and then closing the show here on the road against the Jets in a must-win game. Like, you really would, I'm looking at that 4-game stretch down when it starts with Kansas City, San Francisco, Detroit, and LA, or LA and Detroit, however that goes. That is the gauntlet of all gauntlets. Like, I mean, you want to be as far ahead as you can be, in the win column when you get to that stretch. And so I think about this stretch, and I think this has been an important night for the Bills as they kind of keep their season, get it back on track, and keep it kind of trending in the direction that you want it to get. Some winnable games coming up over the next couple. You'll get a Kansas City Chiefs team in about a month and a half, then a bye. Two key factors, common denominators. Last week, Terrell Bernard comes back. Huge interception down the stretch to help get the Bills in a position to make a run at winning that game. This week, Taron Johnson, play of the game, getting an interception. Because you know what? If that ends up being an incompletion, fine. They have a chance to go for it on 4th down, and maybe they get a 1st down, maybe they don't, whatever the case may be. But Taron Johnson basically called ball game on that spot. And that's the kind of thing that your leaders, your best players, they do in those big spots.
Yeah. First of all, with this gauntlet, the Bills need to rack up a lot of wins here. 2-game lead over the Jets and the Dolphins is big. If they can, cushion that a little bit more before that gauntlet of a schedule comes up, that it'll bode well for them and their chances to win this division. But Taron Johnson tonight, unbelievable play on that 3rd down ball to Mike Williams, reading the play, jumping in at the last second, because, even though Williams slipped trying to come back to the ball, he's going to catch that. If Taron Johnson doesn't get in there, he's in position to make a play on the ball. Johnson comes in, gets his hands on it, and as they're kind of fighting for it, when he flips over, he lands with the ball in his possession. A huge, huge play, and you saw him get better over the course of the game. Early on, I was sitting there wondering if, he clearly had some rust. There was a one-on-one with him and Garrett Wilson. He moved up. It looked like he was going to press Wilson, and Wilson just blew right by him on a 3rd down play to move the chains with ease. But once he got his footing, he was the same special player that we've always come to know him to be. Same with Terrell Bernard and how he performed last week. Kudos to Bernard for a huge run stop early in that game to cause a 3rd and long. He stepped up. So, as they're getting these key contributors back, you expect more and more of this team in terms of the way that they play. If James Cook is back to 100% next week, you expect the offense to be even better now that you know what you have in Ray Davis and you know what Cook can do. When Khalil Shakir is back to close to 100%, you know how important he is to this passing attack. And if you can add another wide receiver via trade, it bodes well for the Bills because, you mentioned the gauntlet, Matt. The AFC just feels like it's kind of there for the taking this year. I know the Ravens are playing great ball. They beat the Bills really well earlier this season, but come playoff time, we know how Lamar Jackson plays in the postseason. I think there'll still be a chance to beat a team like that. The Chiefs are perfect, but they've already lost some key contributors to that offense this season that's going to make them vulnerable at times. I don't believe in the Texans and the record that they have. They've escaped with some wins that easily could have been losses, and that is what good teams do. But that's not a team that intimidates you. This is a year where the Bills should kind of push the chips in. And I know the cap space is tough, but if you can add an Amari Cooper, I saw Darius Slayton in the chat. It feels like a good time to do that because it feels like this is a year where they could make a deep run in the AFC, if not, claim the AFC Championship title.
Final thought here from me before we get out of here, and we're brought to you by Topps Friendly Markets as always. And right now you can win a trip to see the Bills play in LA. We were talking about that 4-game gauntlet. Topps Friendly Markets is trying to hook you up with a trip to see the Bills play the Rams. Winner and 3 guests will get a round trip flights from Buffalo to LA, Buffalo at LA game tickets, 4-night hotel stay in Santa Monica, a party pack, VIP pregame, and more. See Labatt display in store, Topps Markets to enter and learn more and win. It's big time. My final thought, Ryan, Dawson Knox gets himself back into the mix in a big way. And listen, on a play where you want Dawson Knox in that spot, scramble drill, he's played with Josh Allen longer than anybody, gets a huge touchdown that, puts the Bills up pretty confidently early in that game. It was an off schedule play for Josh Allen, gets out to his left, finds Knox working his way back. Perfect pass. It's not the big 6-7 target game that maybe we thought could potentially happen as a changeup, but it's still a play in the game where Dawson Knox finds a way to make an impact.
Yeah, huge game for Knox, or a huge moment, I should say, for Knox making that play. Final thought for me, it's time to bring in a kicker, at least on the practice squad. I know tonight's kicking conditions were tough. Obviously, the Jets missed quite a few, doinking them off the goalpost, but when you can't count on Tyler Bass, whether it's from 47 yards out or to kick an extra point, I know it was tipped, I know it was blocked, but that's also part of his deal with kicking it as low as he does. It's been an issue for him. You need to be able to count on your kicker in these close games. The Bills were able to escape because it was a 22-yard kind of a, you would think a gimme for a kicker, regardless of the wind conditions. You can't trust him, though, it feels like, in big moments anymore, and which is a shame. It's just kind of the way that this works, though, in this league with kickers. You at least have to bring in competition, add a guy to the practice squad. I get it. There's not great options out there. I know Tyler Bass's salary. I get the contract's not ideal. But you have to have someone you can count on in a big moment. And right now, I can't see how the Bills can count on Tyler Bass.
Some great stuff today, Ryan Talbot. As usual, I'm going to try to go to sleep so I can get up early and fly back to Buffalo, New York. We'll have much more. Sean McDermott and the coordinators talk tomorrow. Media day back to Wednesday as usual. And then we'll have the full week of Bills coverage from Orchard Park. For Ryan Talbot, I am Matt Parrino. We will see you then. Take care, everybody. Have a good night.